This is Beyond the Bell Tower, where an elite group of North Carolina State University students give us a behind-the-scenes look at their steps to success and show us how they attain even their lofty goals. These students, who are in the top 10% of the country, are active in student support services at NC State, a nationally recognized program designed to provide support for low-income, first-generation college students. Nationally, this population has an 11% graduation rate within 6 years. The Student Support Services students surpass that rate each year and go on to become doctors, dentists, accountants, and engineers. They work at Google, Apple, and the NCAA. They have earned PhDs in Ivy League colleges. These students go well beyond the bell tower to reach this level of success.
So welcome to Beyond the Bell Tower, podcast for TRIO students by TRIO students. Would you guys be willing to say your name, major, year, and maybe something unique about yourself?
All right, so I'm Shelyn Williams, a freshman at NCSU. I am in exploratory studies, and something interesting about me, I love investing.
That's honestly really cool.
You're gonna have to teach me about that because I'm 21 and I don't know anything about any of that.
Wow, for sure.
My name is Miranda Peruesk. I'm a senior at NC State. I am a psychology student major with a minor in criminology, and I used to spend my days staring at the clouds and trying to identify them because I was a big nerd.
And I am Caitlin Sosby, the host of this podcast. I am a senior in communications. Before we get too into this, what were you both most nervous about attending NC State? Miranda, if I'm correct, you're a transfer student, right?
Yeah, so I technically was a transfer student. I went to an early college high school, so I came into NC State with my associate's degree, and it was really weird being thrown into all of the advanced classes without having the real freshman experience of all the general education courses because I had already finished those. So I was really nervous about making friends my own age and really feeling at home on campus. But TRIO definitely helped with that.
Well, of course, as a freshman, I had no prior experience with college, and that coupled with Corona and knowing that all my classes were going to be online was very nerve-wracking because I prefer in-person classes. So I was thinking, how am I going to do math online when there's no teacher? I can just raise my hand and ask a question. You can come over and help me. How am I going to learn a language online? I was taking Spanish. So it was just a lot of anxiety about how well I would do with my classes.
So since you are a freshman, you chose NC State during the pandemic, didn't you?
Yes. Actually, I don't know if you can put this in, but I was planning on going to App State for a long time. But then as the virus developed, I was like, maybe I should choose something a little closer to home. And my sister is also a senior here. So it was just the smarter, safer choice. If an emergency happened, we can go home, no problem, 2 hours tops. But App State is way farther than NC State. And I was familiar with the campus. I love the campus. I love the people. I love the environment. So I was happy to come here.
Well, we are glad to have you.
I second that notion. It's definitely a pretty nice college to be at. What resources have best helped you through that process? Because I can't imagine it being easy even though you did know the campus pretty well.
Of course. So TRIO obviously was very paramount in helping me adjust. Any questions I had, anything at all, I just emailed them. They answered it. I actually had my own TRIO mentor, and he really just kept checking in on me. We actually had meetings, so that was really, really helpful, just having someone who's there to help you and see how you're doing when all your friends are going home and stuff like that. So it was very nice. And just all the resources that TRIO makes available to their students is out of this world. So I definitely took advantage of a lot of those, and those have really helped me.
So Miranda and I are both TRIO peer mentors. Do you mind saying who your peer mentor is?
His name was Tyrez. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but Tyrez Hudson, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
How's it pronounced?
Yes, he was in my Beyond the Bricks mentor group, because each year the mentors get placed into a themed group where we put on events to help other mentors and everyone's mentees kind of get a feel for what kind of resources are around campus and outside of campus to better adjust for college life and planning for careers. And he was in my group and he's absolutely incredible. You got really lucky with having
For
such
sure.
amazing.
Energy is up here for sure.
So I heard from Sarah that you live on campus. Is that correct?
Yes, I am staying for winter housing. I've been on campus since the very beginning.
Can you explain that process? Because I don't know much about it, especially with everybody being taken off campus near the beginning.
Are you referring to staying on campus for the fall semester or for winter?
For the fall and for winter. You can explain both.
Okay, so for the fall, there was just an application that you would have to fill out, like your reasons for staying. It was kind of like an emergency housing situation. So for example, you may not have stable internet connection at home. There may be a lot of high risk people at your home, so you wouldn't want to put them at risk. There's a lot of different reasons that one could stay on campus. All you had to do was fill out the application, and probably 9 times out of 10, it would have been approved. The mandate was more about just like lowering the volume of people on campus, and it definitely did that. It wasn't too bad, to be honest. There was still like a healthy amount of people on campus, so you didn't feel like totally isolated. So I definitely stand by my decision on staying. It just really helped me focus on school. That wasn't something that I would have been able to do like in my house with 6 other people. Definitely wouldn't have been able to do that. And as for winter housing, there was like a $700 fee that had to be paid for winter housing, and that was that. It was, you just pay the $700 and they give you an apartment in Wolf Village, since like the dining hall plan, like the meal plans are cut off. So you have your own kitchen, you have your own living area and things like that.
I had no idea how the winter one at all worked.
Yep, they sent out an email. All you had to do was pay $700, fill out an application, and that was that.
Is your sister also on campus?
Yes, technically she lives in Wolf Ridge, the apartments on Centennial campus, so she decided to stay there, yes.
Do you see her a lot since you guys are on campus, or not really?
I just saw her yesterday. No, she has the car between the two of us, so it's very helpful that we have a form of transportation. So we go get groceries together, we just hang out together.
That's good. So I want to switch kind of focuses and come back to this and focus on high school, because you have a very interesting experience of graduating during a pandemic.
Oh my, don't even get me started.
And I'm very curious on how that worked for you, since both Miranda and I are seniors and are also close to graduating.
Of course. So senior year, it all started out. So there was, the rumor of the virus, and it was kind of like it was over there, so we don't have to worry about it. But I guess it started spreading over here. They called off school for, I think I remember, 3 days. I think it was like a Thursday or something like that. And they're like, "You'll be back Monday. Just taking off these next 2 days." So of course we were like, okay, see you Monday, bye. No hugs, nothing. It was just like a regular day. We never came back to school. It was like, it just cut off right there. No goodbyes, no turning in homework for the next day, no nothing. It was just like a straight cut off. So that was a little bit crazy. Like it was a constant cycle of never knowing when we're coming back. We're like, oh, we're coming back this week, we're coming back that week. But sooner or later, it was the end of the school year, and we were like, yep, I guess that was our goodbye. We did not have prom. We didn't have the traditional graduation. Literally all we did was walk across the empty stage. And that was pretty depressing. We were allowed to have I believe 5 family members look at us walk across a stage in a gym, and that was that.
How was that? Because you said earlier that you have 6 other people in your house.
Definitely, it was a hassle for seeing who's going to be where. So definitely not everybody got to come, for sure. But it was all we could do. But yeah, it was definitely a lackluster experience compared to what it should have been, senior prom, senior graduation. So
Those big milestones that everyone is
exactly,
excited for.
Yeah.
exactly.
Miranda, do you want to talk about the NC State experience of what happened for us during the pandemic?
So I didn't get the full experience of the pandemic being on campus because my my classes in the spring semester of this year, they were easily moved online. So it wasn't, and I already had like a couple of online classes. So it wasn't as big of a change for me as everybody else, but they did really well at keeping everybody informed. And I live in an apartment off campus, so I didn't have to deal with housing and everything and wondering how it's going to be for move out and everything. And then this coming semester, it was a little bit crazier because my classes were all online initially, and then my roommates, they still had some in-person classes until the school decided to make everything online, which was a little rough, having to watch them deal with everything because this is an unprecedented time. Nobody's ever had to deal with this before, and it affects everyone around you, and it's very weird to think about because we all think about college and we think about movies and going to classes and it's all perfect and happy go lucky, and then this comes along and we have to think of new policies, and the school has to think about population density on campus, and it's very interesting to think about. The school has been really great at doing everything, but it's also really hard on all of the students. It, from what I've heard, increased housing and food insecurities have happened, and it's really sad to think about that as well.
To go off on that, I can speak a bit more on that. I moved back home during the pandemic, and I actually had an issue with internet insecurity because of where I lived. There was only one internet provider. And right after I got my internet, it actually stopped providing for my area. So I actually used the student emergency fund to pay for that internet because it was something I was not prepared to pay for at the time. And I had an insecurity with that, along with living in a house with siblings who needed the internet as well, as we all switched online. And it was just a weird time because, like you said, we didn't know what things were going to happen. And our spring break was extended, which made it harder to go back to classes.
Yeah, and my mom is friends with a couple of elementary age teachers, and hearing the stories of everyone having to deal with internet insecurity and internet issues is really almost disheartening because before this all happened, everyone thought that we had the height of technology. We had everyone can be on the internet, and then this happened and everyone was on the internet, and it constantly crashes, it can't uphold, and it causes problems for students. Because I tended to, throughout the semester, I still lived at my apartment, but I would visit home a lot because I needed to see people because my roommates were never at my apartment and I never went onto campus, so I never saw anyone. So I'd always come home and my internet at home would always go out on me. Zoom would always drop in the middle of my classes, and it was always the worst. And it's really nice to think about the student fund that you were able to use for internet because so many people weren't able to prepare for this sort of thing, and so having that resource was also really incredible. I thankfully did not have to use that because my area typically has good Wi-Fi. I'm in a very populated, dense area, and but having all of those resources for so many people is amazing.
Shelyn, what was your biggest fears during the pandemic?
I enjoy meeting new people. I was so excited. That was actually one of like the main factors of becoming NC State, just the diversity on campus there. Like we have students from 150 different countries, every state and every county in North Carolina. I was like, finally, I get to meet, new people with different views, different, ideas and stuff. And I was so excited to make so many friends and just network and connect. And then when I heard this and how they were reducing the population density on campus and how a lot of like the international students were staying online or not coming and just like the overall reduced population, I was extremely sad about that. It was definitely a challenge making friends because you can no longer just walk up to someone. It's more of like it's almost like a threat walking up to someone during a global pandemic. So that definitely wasn't an option. It was just a lot of reduced connectivity. So I definitely felt that. Also, online classes, once again, I am a very like physical learner. I like being in the environment. I like being around people. I like being able to raise my hand and, do this and that and be able to focus. Because, when you're in class, it's just the class you're able to focus. But when you're on your laptop, you can be anywhere in the world doing anything. You can be in your bed. So it was definitely, it was more like on the student to just really be responsible. You don't have to show up to class, you just have to click a button. So it's a lot of willpower to really do what you're supposed to, when you're supposed to, how you're supposed to.
Did you ever have any classes in person before it went online?
Yes, I tried my hardest to get as many in-person classes as I could. I was so excited. I think I had 3 that were either in person or hybrid. I was like, okay, I can do this. This semester will be bearable. Of course, as you know, second week of classes that went out the window, all of them turned online. So yes, I did.
So going back to like your living situation, you said that you were on campus throughout the whole pandemic. What is it like to live on campus? Because right now, both Miranda and I are in apartments, so it's a completely different feel for us.
Oh, for sure. So at first, when everybody was here, I don't know, I feel like it was more, okay, rephrase that. But when I first got on campus, of course, there weren't as many people as I expected to. But as, everybody left, I think it was like a week after everybody left, somehow it got more crowded. And I think I deduced that it was just the athletes. The athletes were still on campus. They were still training. And there was like a lot of people. So definitely like, since they kind of consolidated everything, everybody wasn't so spread out. So it did feel like there was more people, even though there wasn't. They kind of shut down the dining hall, so everything was in tally. So everybody just kind of congregated in tally. So it definitely didn't feel as lonely. So I enjoyed that. But now that I am in Wolf Village, it's a little bit farther away from everything. And I actually longboarded by there the other day, and there was 2 people there. So it's definitely different from winter break. But one thing I am so grateful about is here in Wolf Village, we've kind of started like our own community within like the village, because we know that there is like so few people here and we'll go crazy without like meeting any new people. So we've created group chats. We've had like dinner, of course, like socially distancing stuff. But yeah, it's been okay. It's been bearable when you have other people going through the same thing.
What dorm were you originally in?
That's a whole story. So throughout the semester, I've actually had to move like 3 different times within the span of one semester. Like I've learned to just copy and paste, my whole dorm. But originally I was in Owen, and then, which is hall style. And then I moved to Bowen, which is sort of like a suite style, I believe. And then I moved to Wolf Village,
which is the apartment style.
Yes.
Yeah, I was in Tucker, so I know what it's like for the hall ones, and it's
no elevator.
I was in Carroll my freshman year.
My best friend was in Carroll.
The Tri-Towers will get you.
Yeah. So what is it like with eating at Tally for that time period?
During this fall semester?
Yes.
Actually, I didn't mind it at all, since everything was in one place. You didn't have to decide between walking that way for dining hall food and walking this way for, Tuffy's Diner and all that. So it was kind of all in one place. Actually, I think the food has improved. I don't know if it's in my head, but the food has quite literally improved because I think the chefs from One Earth are kind of like, taking care of the whole dining hall situation. So, we had, bacon wrapped scallops the other day. We had like shrimp cocktail and salmon and beef brisket. So I definitely think it was a step up. I'm not gonna lie. I really enjoyed it for sure. And of course we had 1887, which is the best restaurant on campus. Whoop, whoop.
Yes. And having Tally open, you get a variety of food, so it's not like you burn out of one thing.
Of course, yes.
It's amazing. I used to eat in Tally all the time my first year here, and I would rotate where I'm eating, and I never got tired. Having Tally open compared to a dining hall where you can't even really have like a dining hall during a global pandemic. So it's really nice that there's that other option too. So,
And something that's close to Tally is the food pantry. Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I heard that you also used that during your time.
Oh, for sure. That was a resource that I was very happy to find, and I have no idea why so few people take advantage of it. I think it's more the stigma around going to a food pantry. But in my head, I'm like, okay, so this is what my tuition is paying for. I'm going to use every resource at my disposal. And I was in need because groceries are incredibly expensive, especially with Target being the only real, liable option because it's so close. And yeah, I definitely took advantage of that. They were super nice. The staff is incredibly helpful. I never felt uncomfortable going. The people were super nice. They did have a wide variety of food available, a lot of fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, and just a lot of resources that would have really put a damper on people's, monetary supply. So it was definitely essential aid in helping me really get through and have all the things that I need. Definitely, for sure. It's right beside the theater, and you just go right in there. I'm pretty sure it'll have feed the pack on the door. Very easy to find.
Awesome. And I also just found the address. So it's 2221 Dunn Avenue, and it's open from 12 to 6, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. So it's definitely a resource that we all recommend for people who are going to be on campus, especially since we are having more people on campus in spring.
Also, even people out of campus, I'm pretty sure as long as you're a student, it's open and available.
Speaking of next semester, what is like your worries heading into the next semester?
I just really do not want a repeat of this semester. Like before I came to college, I have never had a B in my life. I've had straight A's, my whole life. Getting a B would have been like a crime. But this semester, I was not doing too hot, and it was just really jarring to, see that and see that I wasn't, up to my usual standards. So like with everything going on, it was pretty near impossible to, keep that same standard. So I just really want to go in next semester being more prepared now that I kind of know what's going on and being more organized with taking online classes and just really taking charge this time.
And you said previously you're an exploratory studies student?
Yes, I am.
How is that transition for you? Because I know that you're taking a class to help you figure out what you want to do. And that's pretty hard to figure out while you're doing everything online. So how's that working for you?
It was definitely odd. The class is meant to be very engaging and very interacting. Like I remember our first few days of classes were very fun, talking with different people, really figuring it out. And the online transition was done as best as it could, but, not 100% effective. Trying to figure out my major in a time like this was definitely, a bit much. It was helpful that I had an idea. Some people come in not knowing like anything about what they want to do, but I had an idea. I kind of wanted to go in business. I kind of like the whole business, international studies, Spanish kind of collection. So I was just somewhere in there. So I can still take general classes that won't be completely useless, but I haven't decided.
Well, I think all of those ideas are amazing. I was in exploratory studies, and I went from computer science to business to communications. So definitely very different ideas there. So I can understand at least having a good set point of what you want to do is very important for succeeding. And even if you don't know, for people who are still uncertain, it's fine. Take a deep breath and you got this.
And it's totally okay to think that you know what you want to do for the rest of your life and then decide to change, because I started out for sure wanting to do meteorology and wanting to work in the National Weather Center. And then I really got into those specific classes and I realized that's not what I want to do for the rest of my life. And so I took a look at everything and decided to change, and it was the best thing ever. So don't be afraid if you get into classes that you think you'll enjoy and you don't end up enjoying them, or you get into a major that you feel like you have a passion for and then it doesn't quite work out. You have plenty of time and plenty of options to work through.
So for next semester, we are having more students come back on campus that have either previously left or have not been on campus yet. What is your advice for those who are returning on campus, since you are there and you kind of have understood how it works?
Are you referring to the students who have not had the experience of fall semester?
Yes.
Oh,
Those who like returned home or who are just starting out at NC State.
okay. I would definitely say wear your mask first and foremost. Just follow the guidelines that are in place. Take this time to really, enjoy the college experience. It might not have been how it usually would, but definitely still enjoy, just being around people, doing different activities. There's plenty of activities that we can do, in a socially distant way. So really just take advantage of all the campus resources that are available, like the gym, the food pantry, the food and anything. Just really taking advantage of being on campus. It's a beautiful environment to be in. There's so many trees, and it'll really help, with the change in scenery. I know if I stayed home, I would not have been in a good state of mind, just being constantly in home, surrounded by, millions of siblings and parents and chores and stuff. So just really take this time to relax and, go outside and have a picnic.
So I kind of have 3 parts to this, and we're nearing the second part, which is you guys can choose which one you want to focus on first. I have stuff about NC State University's response to the pandemic and their furthering response for next semester. And then I also have, and this is kind of more of a fun one in my opinion, I wanted to focus on what to look forward to with NC State when we're getting closer to the normalcy we had before the pandemic. So looking at how NC State was before this and things to look forward to as we have reached a point where a vaccine is close at hand.
The second one, definitely.
Yeah, fun one first.
Mm-hmm.
So Miranda, I know we're at least part of the meteorology club. Do you want to explain like how clubs work and how it was to be on campus with your club?
Yeah, so I was in the NCSU Weather Club. It's where a bunch of students we were primarily meteorology majors, but we're open to anybody and everybody who wants to join. We're always welcome to more people. So what we would do is we would practice weather broadcasts. So we would put together our presentations and we would do a daily report and a weekly report. We would show satellite radar maps and everything, and it was really incredible. And then on our assigned day of the week, we would go into the recording studio and we would record our broadcast. We had a green screen and side screens to where we could tell where we were on the screen, just like in a professional broadcast studio. It was amazing. It was great to be on campus working with people who had similar passions, because I kept doing it even after I had left meteorology, and it was incredible because everyone's so supportive of each other, and we all kind of became friends because we all knew what we were going through, like how hard the classes were and everything. And we all had kind of similar goals, and it was amazing. And I know that there are other clubs on campus that are just as amazing. There's a club for practically anything that you can think of. There was a Disney movie club that I was made aware of because I'm such an avid fan of Disney. There are so many other clubs. There's obviously club sports and everything, and it's incredible because you find this place on campus where you fit in and you get to meet people who have the same who or similar passions as you, and it's amazing because coming in to an unknown place your first year can be incredibly daunting. And then you find this club that, or multiple clubs that make you really feel at home. And it's amazing. I always advocate for joining as many clubs as you want, even if you can't dedicate as much time to it. Having that resource and that social interaction is always amazing.
Speaking of organizations that we're a part of, we are all TRIO students. Would you like to explain how the TRIO office is and how our programs are in person? Because I think that's one of my favorite things about campus is the TRIO office.
Oh yeah, the TRIO offices are absolutely amazing. There was one point, I think it was 2 semesters ago, I had a test that I had to study for, and I ended up sitting in the TRIO office for about 6 hours straight because it's such a nice environment. It doesn't feel claustrophobic. It helps release stress because when I needed a little mini study break, I can go up to the front desk and talk to Dawn, and I had access to all of the advisors because anybody there, literally anybody in that office, will help you with anything that you can ask. There was one time I was in an advising meeting with my TRIO advisor, and I had mentioned in passing that I had a paper that I was a little nervous about because I had no clue how to start it. She sent me right down the hall to Kyle, who is our resident writing expert, and he helped me start that paper like it was nothing. He guided me on potential resources that I could use and everything, and it was amazing. And then Trisha, she's our resident graduate school expert. You can go into her office if she's not in a meeting and ask her any questions, and she will have the answer in a split second. Everybody there is so amazing. They're so friendly. They're so easy to talk to. Like you can just go into the office, sit around, and hang out between classes because it's so welcoming.
I remember my first program that like really stood out to me was one of our fall conferences. And I was probably a freshman at the time or a sophomore, I don't remember. But I was so nervous because the only person I knew at the time was Sarah, who was my advisor at the time. And all the TRIO people had already knew who I was and was already calling me by name and acting so friendly and so sweet. And you just instantly feel welcomed in that space. And then we do trips together and you see how bright Dawn's personality is, and you get to learn new things every single time you're with them. So it's definitely I'd say one of the highlights of things to look forward to.
Oh yeah, they are definitely very, very personable and interested in your life. Every time I go into the office or went into the office, Dawn would ask me about my sister because she remembers that my older sister is in a graduate program right now in Winston-Salem. She's like, "Oh, how's your sister?" And it shows you that she cares and everybody cares because they take the time to get to know you and to get familiar with you. And so I'm definitely looking forward to being in the office more for my last semester.
Actually, Shelyn, do you have places on campus that you're curious about what they're like before COVID started, like classroom buildings, library, tally, any place like that?
Yes, actually, honestly, because my only experience has been like a deserted, campus. Like I've never seen more than 10 people out of a time, even at the beginning of the semester. It's just really, really empty, kind of depressing. So I would love to know, like, where were the most populated places? What did Tally look like? What did the Brickyard look like? How did Hillsborough look like?
Like
Tally was always full of life. It was incredible because you could go in there 2 days in a row and not recognize a face because there's just that many people on campus, that many people that would go through there. There was always people playing games on the TVs by the C store. There was always people going in and out of the restaurants and everything. The bookstore and gift shop was always full of people because everybody has to represent state.
the Starbucks was so crowded though.
Always. You could try to order ahead on Tap and Go, and it would take like an hour to get a single coffee. It was great. It was like we lived in our own mini city, like our own social ecosystem. There was always people outside on the lawn and everything, people riding by on Lime scooters.
It was kind of also really socially acceptable to sit next to somebody because, like, when you go upstairs, there's only so many places to sit. So you just be like, hey, can I sit here? And you just have another stranger next to you for like the next half an hour to like however long you want to be there, just because it is that crowded. So you always meet somebody now.
Yeah, and then Hillsborough was always fun because you could walk by and see the cars driving, and Hillsborough Street leads straight into downtown. So you can look down the street and see the city and everything, and you could really feel life. I don't know how to describe it. It was always exciting. It always put a smile on my face because I knew that I was living my life. I was independent. I was having fun doing everything. And the libraries were social spots plus studying spots. You could go into the library intent on studying and then end up eating ice cream and talking with your friend. You really could never tell what was going to happen when you entered the library. It was great. People would go into the top floors of Hill and go take naps. Like, it was always amazing. You could never predict what's going to go on campus.
And to go more specific, especially with majors, like each major kind of has their own like specific buildings that classes would mainly be attending. Like you'd have your class in a very similar building, like Chas was known for those three buildings right off Hillsborough. And I think it's Nelson Hall is where business classes are. And you would just sit in there and you'd meet so many people from your major and you get to talk between classes and you would just hang out there all day because all your classes are right there. So you really get to be with the people who are interested in the same things you are and are ready to learn the same things you are. And you make so many friends just doing that all day.
Yeah, like everybody in Poe Hall were either psychology or education majors, pretty much. And you are all taking similar classes and you can talk to anybody there. and find at least one thing in common, and it was great. And then I know a bunch of people in SAS were like math majors and everything, or at least in majors that heavily centered around math, and they were always talking and socializing, talking about things that I don't understand. And it's just
And there's just so many places to just relax and hang out on
yeah,
campus.
there's all kinds of social communities around campus that you can witness, and it's incredible.
Is there anything else you're really curious about, Shelyn?
Your whole description just sounded like a dream. Like I am just so sad that I didn't get to experience that, honestly. Well, that was basically my question, like how easy it was to meet new people, how easy it was to go out somewhere and see another human, walking by.
It really does feel like it was kind of a dream, because we're graduating soon. We're graduating next semester, and it's completely different to how we started.
Yeah.
I remember my freshman year, I was living in Carroll Hall, and my window faced the Free Expression Tunnel. And I would always see people painting it and repainting it, and just
That's an amazing view. I got a dumpster.
it was honestly pretty great. I watched one of the clubs paint a cow on it because they were the Dairy Science Club, and so they painted a cow. It was always great, and seeing the difference now, it's a little sad, but also a little confidence boosting. I know that's weird to say, but it's like, I've made it, we've made it this far, we can make it more.
Mm-hmm. I think what I regret most is I'm very introverted, and I feel like I didn't take as much advantage of it as I could have. And I think that's what's really bad about it, is now with the pandemic, I am so desperate to meet people, and I'm so ready to talk to people. And it's like, well, you've got your cat and your roommate sometimes, and that's it.
Yes, exactly. That is exactly how I feel, because my first year, it felt like everybody already knew their friends, and putting myself out there and introducing myself to new people wasn't my strong suit. And then this year I had finally gained enough confidence and talked myself up to being able to introduce myself to random people in my classes and everything. And then COVID happened and everything went online, and there's no longer that personal interaction that you get whenever you're sitting next to somebody in a class. But hopefully next semester will be a little better. There'll be a little bit more interaction and socially distanced things to do around campus. That way people can still have a little bit of that normalcy.
You both are very social people, and I really appreciate that. What do you guys like? Who do you guys rely on for support during this time? Because it is so hard to stay social and to interact with people right now.
To be honest, I've learned to rely on myself, just because you don't really have anybody. It's kind of like it's not good to be around people. So yeah, I've just really learned to rely on myself, because you don't have someone you can, go and talk to. Your roommates are constantly changing. Your friends are gone. They went back home. So I really just learned to rely on myself, honestly, just because of the lack of people around me.
Yeah.
It's been a very isolating experience.
I've tended to rely on my family, my parents, and my older sister, because I see them more, and whenever I'm up at school, I FaceTime them a lot. I'm always talking to them some way or another. My sister and I, we primarily communicate through sending each other TikToks because we always try to make each other laugh by sending each other stupid videos, and it's great because it's that sense of I was thinking about you and you were thinking about me enough to decide, hey, I think you should see this. But I've also, like Shelyn said, I've also kind of relied on myself. I've delved into like YouTube and everything, trying to just hear people almost, try to get to know people through their videos and everything, even if it's not mutual interaction. I watch like a lot of people's live videos on YouTube and TikTok because it's just everybody's kind of in the same boat right now. Everyone's feeling isolated. So it's that mutual want of social interaction that's keeping me afloat because I know that I'm not alone, even if I feel like it. Family is definitely a big part in keeping me from losing all motivation and desire to be successful.
How do you both recommend for people to maintain a healthy mindset throughout this time period? Because this is a very traumatic experience for all of us. We're all dealing with this trauma while we're attending school.
Yeah, so I recommend going outside and breathing in the fresh air and just not staying stagnant for too long. I made that mistake and it was so easy to just take all of my Zoom classes in bed and do all of my homework in bed. So there was no separation of school and relaxation, and it took a toll. So I really suggest getting outside or getting to the gym, or at least a different room in your apartment or dorm building or anything. Just have a change of scenery, because seeing the same thing over and over can be really disheartening. And heck, you may even meet people who are doing the same thing, just trying to keep yourself motivated and aware of everything that's going on.
For me, what was the question again?
How do you what is your recommendation to others to maintain a healthy mindset throughout this traumatic time period?
One thing I've learned, it's gonna sound cliche, it's gonna sound, cheesy, but quite literally, the key to this is thinking positive thoughts. Like, positive thoughts is so paramount in this, because once you start thinking negative, like once you start dwelling on the past, dwelling on the future, you just get trapped in this spiral, and you're gonna end up very depressed, and you're already isolated, so it's gonna be harder to get help, harder to talk about it. So definitely keep thoughts positive. Try and look on the upside. Yeah, online classes may suck, but now I can take class from my bed. Now I can have a picnic while I'm in class. You just got to really look at the positive. With online classes, I have less commutes. I have more time to do the things I like. I can now meditate. I have my own space. I have my own room to myself. You just really got to focus on the positive, and it's super hard. Like I can tell you that it's super hard, but it's just what you have to do for the time being. You almost have to lie to yourself, like, this happened for a reason. Now I can go learn this or do this. Now I can, catch up with life instead of life being like 10 feet ahead of me now. And now that the world has kind of stopped, been put on pause. Now I can finally, catch up and even get ahead. Like there are so many things that I've done in quarantine. Like I said, I've really gotten into investing. I've joined my own investment group. It's like a whole other family to me now. I'm just doing all these different things, and I've really taken this time to personally develop. Like if you could see my wall right now, you would see so much stuff just from, my affirmations, positive affirmations, different quotes that my mentors have said, different poems. I've taken this time to get more organized, and I've just really, personally developed. I've read more books, and it's been really helpful just allowing me to, slow down, pause, and really think about what I'm doing, think about the future, think about what I want, really just set my goals in place. So it's really just, everything's just slowed down enough for me to, catch up and do the things that most people wouldn't have the time to normally do.
That's amazing. You truly are an inspiration.
Oh, thank you.
That actually just made me think of another thing that can help you with a positive mindset during all of this. The school counseling center is great for helping with this because, like Caitlin said, this is a traumatic experience. It was so abrupt. All of the changes are constantly coming at you, and you can never really know what to expect. And the counseling center is really great for students and everyone to be able to use because they're still doing telehealth appointments and some in-person appointments, and it's great to just be able to have someone non-partial or impartial to talk to and help you through this, help you come to terms with everything that's happening and figuring out what's the best way for you to deal with, because everybody is different and it's really a great resource. I use it all the time. I'm a big advocate for counseling and therapy, obviously, because that's what I want to go into, but it's great for everyone, and there's less stigma around it now. So more people are going for help and just to talk about things, because you can talk to friends and you can talk to family and advisors and everything, but a lot of the times you feel like you have to put your best self out there. And when you're talking to the counselor center, you don't have to do that. You can talk about how hard it is to adjust to online classes, how brutal it is not seeing people, and they can help you with getting that positive mindset and with doing things that make you feel happier. Almost it's like they make you aware of everything that's happening and how to handle it, how to deal with it. So it's my favorite thing to do and talk about, because it's honestly the best thing ever.
I actually have a question about that.
Yeah.
So to have like a reoccurring, count to get like continual counseling, having like an appointment, say like once every week, does it cost money?
No, I believe that it is free to students.
Really? So I can just like schedule appointments and have them like reoccurring for free?
Yes, I believe so. I would have to double check, but I believe that they are free to students.
Okay, I don't know where I found this. I might have just imagined it, but I was super excited to, have counseling because that's something that everybody should have. But I don't know. I thought it cost. I was like, oh, guess not. I guess I'll suffer. But I'll definitely look into that again.
Okay, so I looked it up. Let me keep reading before I say something wrong. So for most students, they're going to offer short-term individual therapy. Most students have used an average of 4 to 5 sessions per year. And for some students, up to 12 sessions of therapy will be offered based on need, but it is not a guarantee just because of how many they have. but they do offer group therapy, which I do believe is more of a long-term thing, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so in the counseling center, your initial appointment, you will talk with a triage therapist, and then you will get assigned a more permanent one after your needs are determined. They're really good about figuring out what each individual needs. They have this questionnaire that really helps identify.
They won't leave you hanging, that's for sure. They'll make sure that you are taken care of and that your needs are met, and that they'll help you as much as they can.
Exactly. They'll also help you find and refer you to professionals in your hometown for over the summer and everything. They are definitely there to help you.
All right, so we're entering the third stage of the podcast, but we're going to be focusing more now on the pandemic itself and how NC State, as the state itself and the university, can better itself in the upcoming months. To start off, I wanted to talk about Duke University, which is a private university in Durham. They decided for fall semester this year that
they were going to have a limited amount of people on campus. Students were asked to quarantine for 14 days before arriving and were tested twice a week if they were on campus and once a week if they were off campus for COVID.
Is so amazing. I had no idea they did this. Wow. I think that's incredibly, smart. They kind of took control, kind of took the matters into their own hands and didn't leave anything to chance. They kind of took that into account, and they're like, all right, freshmen, they need the experience. They need the environment to be on campus. This is really, because also I believe it's because of retention. If freshmen don't feel, particularly attached to the campus or attached to the university, they're probably not as likely to come back for, the next semester and next year. So I think it was honestly really about, freshman retention, but also it was smart because the freshman experience, as I said, is very, very vital, meeting new people and being in that school environment. So I actually really love that response and the fact that they had to quarantine before they came here and that they're tested twice a week. It really helps lower anxieties about, interacting with new people and not like being so constringent about interaction. So wow, I would love to know how that turned out for them. Do you know?
Let me open the link real quick because I was looking at a case study for it. I do know that they had less cases compared to, of course, UNC Chapel Hill and North Carolina State University. But
For sure.
Yeah, I appreciate how.
Oh, they also created a smartphone app for daily symptom self-monitoring and reporting. And
Wow.
I think we definitely should have took after Duke for sure. That sounds like a dream.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate how they really took control of the situation. They weren't really like on the fence about anything. Yeah, because I know a lot of schools were definitely on the fence about making everything online and what to do about students on campus and everything. So their initial constant recurring testing was really smart on their part. But I can't judge any other schools like State or Carolina too harshly because it is an unprecedented time. And nobody really had a good plan on how to deal with everything. I can say that Carolina could have done a little bit better after they had all of their students partying, but I think State did really well with handling everything to fit their needs as well.
But I do want to say I did find the results as well, and there is 84 cases among students, 51% to be precise, that were asymptomatic. So they've caught it just because of the testing.
Wow, that's amazing results. I definitely think that more schools and institutions other than schools can do well by following in the footsteps of Duke, as much as I hate to say that. But
Yeah,
their response was definitely appropriate and proactive.
But yeah, their focus was on freshmen and the younger students. And my next question is, Duke is a private university. Would NC State even be able to have the measures as strict as Duke did?
Yeah, I'm not sure if we could or not, because I'm not overly familiar with how policy differs between private and public schools. I would definitely have to look more into it before I gave a firm answer, but I think that with how large state is and being a public school, it would definitely be harder for us to do something like that, considering all of the students that we have from all over and our ability to make hard and fast decisions is not the best. It's not the same as Duke being a private institution.
Piggyback off that, basically, like she said, Duke probably does have a lot of freedom since this is a public university. There probably are, more boards of directors, more things that have to go through approval because it's, public, state funded. So they would have to have, a lot more, red tape, or more like, things to do, more policies to go through when they're trying to make a quick and fast decision, as she said. So our response would be kind of, slowed down because of just the pure amount of stuff that you have to go through to take the measures that are necessary. Duke being a private university, they probably have a set group of people who make the decisions, since it doesn't have to, go through the state or anything like that. So it'd be very easy to make these quick, sometimes expensive decisions, when they need to be made. So that probably definitely played a part in it. And of course, I don't know their difference in population, but I know NC State is quite large. So also, the pure amount of people that attend may play a part in that as well.
So going into that, looking at what NC State has decided to do for spring semester, NC State is requiring COVID-19 testing 3 to 5 days before returning on campus, and is requesting all students to self-quarantine before coming on campus. And for students who are off campus, I'd say that I believe it's like a mile away from campus. They also are requiring those students to self-quarantine and to take the COVID test. Do you believe that this will help prevent the spread that we saw in fall semester, and that these measures are going to be significant enough to help us continue keeping the school open for the spring semester?
So is everyone allowed to come back on campus?
I'm not sure. I know that they have asked freshmen who were previously on campus if they would like to return, and that they're going to try to fill more housing up that compared to fall semester when they kicked everyone off.
I think it's definitely a step in the right direction, but I'm not sure how much it will help with the spread of it. It'll help with the initial fight against it when everybody comes back from winter break. But considering the area that our campus is in, Raleigh is definitely a hotspot for COVID cases. And people still have to live. It's not easy avoiding contracting COVID. It's not something that you can just outrun, because people still have to get groceries, people still have to work, they still have to go to school, they still have to do things. And so the initial testing is great, but I think the required recurring testing would also be a good option for our school, because we do have a lot of people, and the rush of people that's going to be coming back for the second semester is daunting and definitely needs to be better addressed compared to our first semester, our fall semester.
Just like she said, it takes care of, initial week, but after that, I don't really hear a game plan for how they're going to upkeep this. Duke had reoccurring testing, and, it was mandatory. I don't know how well it's going to go when you kind of put all the responsibility on the students, show up twice a week, and self-quarantine before, that they might as well, like, that's them saying it's optional when they don't like mandate it or require it, because how many students are going to voluntarily, isolate themselves again after, all this. So they're putting a lot of responsibility on the students to kind of, do what they have to do. Do you know if the tests are going to be mandatory, if they're going to be administered by, the university? How's that going to work?
I know that you have to like show proof that you have tested negative before you're allowed back. I don't know how that process is going to work yet. So that'll be interesting to see in the upcoming month.
I'm wondering if student health is still open and doing COVID tests during winter break for everyone that's still on campus, because that would be really interesting to know, because if they're not, then how are people that are still on campus going to get tested before everyone moves back in like they're requiring?
I believe that they are still open. I do know that the CVSs are close by as well, and I do know Wake County is making it easier to acquire testing, but I have not looked into it further.
Yeah, that sounds great. I forgot that there was a CVS close by. It's been a little while. But that's great that they still have those resources.
Mm-hmm. I think what the main concern will be is there's going to be an influx of students trying to get that testing all in the same amount of time. So it's like, where can you find a place to get that testing that's not too busy that it just makes it so it's another place for you to catch it?
Because we also have to contend with other students in Raleigh and where everybody else went home to, because I'm pretty sure everyone's going to have to get tested for this coming semester or at least are going to voluntarily get tested. So all these testing areas are going to have an influx of people wanting and needing tests. And so it's interesting to see how it's all going to play out. We've never had anything like this before, so it's not like we can predict, oh, these many people are going to be tested, and then based on past research or something or other, this many people have the chance of getting it. So it's really interesting, because you can be negative at the time of testing and then get it that day.
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes me nervous, is because like somebody can be negative and then we can be around each other even though we're still socially distant, and I could still get it, somebody else can still get it. It's a little scary, honestly.
So most clusters identified at the beginning were off campus and were especially prominent in Greek life and apartment complexes. How do you think NC State can better monitor these areas to help further protect from a repeat of fall semester's quick rise of cases?
I think state can definitely monitored Greek life better than they did last semester, because Greek life is completely under the umbrella of NC State. It's like Greek life isn't a thing without the school, so they can definitely require more testing and, I hate to say it, but maybe more repercussions for no social distancing or not listening to regulations. But when it comes to like off-campus apartment complexes and everything, it's hard to see state looking after that because it's completely independent of the institution. And there are people that live in the quote unquote student apartments that aren't students. So it's hard to try to keep infection rates low in those kinds of situations.
Well, of course, like she said, off-campus apartments are kind of out of the jurisdiction of NC State, and Greek life is kind of teetering on the edge because all Greek houses are not on campus. They're spread out all through, the Raleigh area, so it's very hard to, pinpoint where they are, where the gatherings are being held, and also it's kind of hard to, battle the desire of all these people. People are just craving social interaction, something they're craving seeing these new people. So people want to, socialize. They want to go to these parties. So as much as it is like partially not necessarily the Greek life's fault, it's the people who come to these events. The Greek life hosts it, but there's also people, NC State students and other people who come to these events. So it's really a group effort of what happened. It's kind of like a contribution to what everybody has done in the fall semester. So I really don't know how they're going to combat that besides, testing, like she said, maybe more restrictions, more monitoring, but that can only do so much. It's kind of, like the whack-a-mole machine where you have to like beat the, what was it, a hedgehog game at the arcades. There's just so many different, organizations, so many different locations. They can't pinpoint every single one of them. So really just emphasizing safety, really emphasizing, alternatives. Because when people have no alternative, that's when it gets bad. They're stuck in their dorms 24/7. They can't do anything. They don't see people. They're going to seize the opportunity to go socialize. So it's really, pinpointing the cause of this rather than, the results. You know what I mean? Like getting to the root of the problem, people not having an outlet for social interaction and stuff like that.
It feels like we're always one step behind when it comes to big organizations like Greek life, because they can always do things and deal with the repercussions later. And right now it's about being proactive, and it's hard to emphasize that to everyone because not everybody's priorities are the same. So it's really hard to get ahead of it. And it's like, you don't want to punish people for being social because human beings are social animals. We crave being around people. And especially right now, we need that sense of community, and they have it, and it's hard to say, no, you can't do all of that. You have to be isolated. So it's really hard to get ahead of that, but it's also like the need that we have to get ahead of that. It's really hard to balance all of the safety and social needs.
Yeah, she said it perfectly. Like, we are social, creatures. We crave that interaction. After someone's been isolated this has been going on for what, 8 months now or something like that. After someone's been isolated for 6 months and you have the opportunity to meet new people, see another human, talk to another human, let go and have fun for, the first time in 8 months, it's really hard to resist, no matter how strong your morals are, no matter how, important this is to you. It's really hard to get over, especially when you see like other people doing these things and you're sitting in your dorm. It's definitely hard to like she said, say, no, you can't do this when it's literally we crave it, honestly. So it's hard to, punish being social, because it's just a part of like who we are.
Mhm. Yeah, and like
But we have to like balance, it's either like short-term gratification or long-term gratification. Are we in this for the long run so we can, put this to an end once and for all? And it's just the uncertainty around it all. Nobody knows when this is going to end. There's not like a certain date. Like Corona isn't going to expire on, December 31st at 11:59. We don't know when this is going to end. So it's like, it's kind of like you only live once, live in the moment.
yeah, exactly. It's like this isolation has created a mentality where a lot of people think, if I'm gonna get it, I'm gonna get it. Might as well go out. If
Exactly.
it's like I can't physically do anything about it, sure, I can wear a mask, I can stay isolated, but that also I can still get it when doing that too, because I still have other things that I have to do. I still have to go outside, I still have to get groceries, I still have to work and everything. So what's adding on a little social interaction to that?
Might as well have fun doing it, right? And like a lot of people I talk to, they're like, I probably already had it. I'm probably gonna get it anyway. Probably have it right now. It's just kind of like that, just leaving it up to chance. Because what this has shown is that we have no control over anything. No matter how careful you are, no matter how much you isolate yourself, it's always a possibility that you either have it right now, have had it in the past, or are gonna get it. So it's kind of like the whole, sorry to bring back this very cringy phase, but it's kind of like YOLO, you only
exactly.
live. So it's definitely hard to, be the responsible person and, stay home. I don't know, look at your plants when, there's an opportunity to socialize, have fun, and just really let go for the first time in literally a year.
Yeah, it's like the awareness of how widespread it is. It's kind of like a dejected feeling, like I can't do anything about this myself. So what else can I do besides have fun? Like it's the whole feeling of just no control, like you said. And it's that the one thing that you can control is how much social interaction you get, and people grab onto it. I know I try to be as like social that I can be in most times, and it's really hard right now. And I've almost gotten to the point where I'm just like, I want to keep myself and everybody around me safe, but like I need social interaction.
So going off of that, this past semester, the only 2 days we had off was for moving out of the dorms at the beginning of the semester. What was your opinion on that? Because I know it was kind of stressful for me, since we didn't even get Thanksgiving break, and we finished before Thanksgiving break, which is something new to us on campus, which had its positives and had its negatives. So what was your opinion on that for a fall semester?
It was absolutely horrible, like going through that whole straight of time, all that stress without a break. And then the only break we did have, we were literally lugging our whole life, either packing to another place, moving to another place. It was very stressful, and it was definitely not enough. Like I remember, even before that, like even just a couple days ago, just because of how like, the break was organized, I literally took my final exam. It was like I was in a conference and I was moving. I was in the middle of moving to this apartment, and I was taking my final. I had just got locked out of my apartment in the middle of moving, and I literally had to take my backpack out of the car. My computer was dead, so I took the final exam from my phone, sitting on a bench outside my apartment. That's how I took my final exam.
That's crazy.
I'm so sorry that you had to go through all of that.
I was just trying to keep it together. But it just made me realize that we are not supposed to be going through things like this. And just to go that long without having a break and then having a 2-month break, because it's just really not the best. Because first of all, you have 2 months And it's like, I don't know, for people who had to go home, thank goodness I didn't have to go home, that I had the opportunity, the means to stay here. But some people do not have the best home life. And for them to have to endure that for 2 months, really, I really feel for them. So I can only imagine how hard that is for them. And just like all the people, who had to stay home, who had to go back, like with all the siblings, the internet issues. Like I remember I went back home and I literally had to go to the library just to do my classes. I would literally sit in the public library for 6 hours just because we do have so many people in our home who are using the internet. I had an 8:30 class and it dropped out twice just because of the internet connectivity. Because Zoom, is going to use a lot of bandwidth. It's a large program. You have all these people streaming. So, all these applications that we're using, it needs a lot of bandwidth. So, yeah, it was just very stressful. And I really feel for the people who had to go home, who have to endure for 2 months straight, isolated, can't go anywhere. It's a very stressful time. And we definitely, definitely needed more breaks in between instead of going for like a straight period, no breaks, then taking a 2-month break and then going at it again. And then the fact that we have, no spring break, it's all very stressful. It's very depressing. I
What
really
is
wish we had
both of
more
your
time.
opinions on no spring break?
I under
Go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead. I, I understand the reason why they're having, of course, it makes logical sense, but honestly, we need that break. Like it's almost our brains are not meant to take this kind of stress about breaks. There was weekends, there was days we had off for a reason, just to, give you that mental break. But a 2-month break, I think actually I've heard like one time that, it's better to take small, frequent vacation. It was referring to like vacations off of work than one long one. And I don't know exactly if you can reference that, but it's sort of like that. You need small breaks, one long break in between two long stretches of time isn't going to be as effective as it would have been if you've
Yeah,
had.
exactly. So like I know next semester they took away our spring break, but they decided to do like 4 wellness days. I think it was like one a month, which I appreciate that they added breaks in, that they added those wellness days. Because like Shelyn said, it's definitely really hard to have a long break compared to multiple shorter breaks, because just like studying, it's been a known thing for a long while that taking shorter breaks when you're studying helps you better than taking longer breaks because it doesn't kill your motivation as much. Like having this 2-month long winter break, you get used to not having anything to do. And so being thrown back into classes with the outlook of not having another like substantial break is really intimidating and just makes people not want to do anything. And I know this past semester having no breaks was really rough on a lot of people's motivation because even the 2 days of moving people out of dorms, that was a fight to get. Remember, they initially said that they were going to have everybody move out, and they didn't say anything about canceling classes for those 2 days.
Mhm.
There was a petition going around to try to get the school to cancel classes for at least one day because it's a lot that piles up on everybody, on all of the students, even the people who didn't have to move out, because they're thinking about what it's like for everybody else and what it's going to be like for them during classes and everything, when half of the people have to skip class because classes aren't canceled and they're having to move out. And so I think next semester with the couple of like day long breaks is a step in the right direction, but it's also like spring break, people look forward to that every year.
Mhm.
It's like senior year, I had wanted to go to New Orleans for my spring break, but now with no spring break and with COVID, it's a little dejected. I'm a little sad about it, but also what has to be done is done. It's
Mhm.
it's mixed feelings because everybody wants to keep everybody safe, but but also people need breaks. People need a chance to let go and get out of their own heads because a lot of people, I know myself, especially when it comes to classes, I tend to stay in my own head and stay stressed because there's nothing to let go with when there's no breaks. Because I constantly feel like I should be doing something because there's no breaks. So if there's no breaks, then I shouldn't be giving myself a break. It definitely hurts motivation and people's mental health.
And also, you have to keep in mind that literally, like freshmen and sophomore, that like of course they're legally 18, but they like the summer doesn't transform you into some superhuman adult. Like we're basically, of course I'm mature and stuff, but in general, we just came from living with our parents, getting driven to school on a school bus, being fed every day, not having to deal with anything. And in that 2 month period, we didn't undergo some dramatic change. We're still, gradually, becoming an adult. So to have to go through all this with no prior experience, no, problem solving, management. Of course, I've been able to deal with it, but some of like the people I know of who might not, have had the experience that I've had, they are definitely, not dealing with this well. Like the transition between high school and college can already be rough because of that responsibility, but this has just gone above and beyond. Like if you don't know how to act like an adult in a time like this, then you definitely fumbled throughout this semester, because just
Yeah.
the pure responsibility and pure mental toughness, the pure drive that one would have had to possess just to pass any of their classes would be just insane. Like even the easiest classes that we have, the PE classes, my weightlifting class, we didn't even lift weights, not once. All we had to do was upload a 5-minute video of us working out, twice a week. And just the pointlessness of it, it's not even necessarily the work, just the pointlessness of it all, not improving. Like I did jumping jacks and, air squats for 5 minutes straight. It's just when you start to see how pointless everything is, it's very hard to continue doing what you're supposed to do. When you see how ineffective learning Spanish online is, when you're behind in math and you can't really see over someone's shoulder what they're doing, it's just the motivation is not there at all.
Yeah,
And it's
and
yeah, go ahead.
it's definitely different for like freshmen because they have no experience with college classes, and then they're taught about college classes in high school, but there's no way to really prepare for it well. And then they get the slight exposure at the very beginning of this semester when classes were still in person, and then they're thrown into online. And it's really hard. It's hard to figure out what to do by yourself because it's most likely that the other people are also freshmen, but they have no clue what they're doing either. And it's hard for everybody to figure out like how to keep themselves motivated because like you said, it's when you're not understanding one class, it's hard to focus on other classes. And then with everything being online, it's not like you can really ask other people for help. Like I was taking Spanish this semester too, and it was really weird over Zoom. And I was also taking statistics, and it was like teaching myself and everything. And that's what a lot of people are doing right now. They're having to teach themselves, and it really kills a person's motivation because if you're not understanding it, then there's essentially, you feel like there's nothing you can do because you don't have the immediate resources available in person. that you would normally have.
Definitely like the blind leading the blind. Nobody knows what they're doing. Even, the people in charge don't know what they're doing. The usual methods of, problem solving, office hours, tutoring, it's all been, turned upside down. So it was definitely difficult.
Yeah, that is the perfect way to describe it. I like that. I'm going to have to use that now.
Or just the blind leading the blind. That's all it is.
Yeah. Yeah, that is exactly what it is, because even on a bigger scale, the federal government doesn't know what they're doing. So state governments don't know what they're doing. So schools and counties don't know what they're doing. It's just, we're all trying to figure this out at the same time, and we're all stumbling around hoping to just get one thing right. It's like we're in a maze.
How would you like to see North Carolina in terms of preventing the spread of COVID? What would you like to see in the future? I know just recently Governor Roy Cooper has made it so that there is bigger consequences of not wearing masks while out and about.
It's definitely hard to balance, it's going to be hard to balance between, being completely strict and, not literally killing people inside. Because, I think I've heard like the story of this one person. He was in his building, doing something, and he didn't have a mask on. I forgot what he was doing. He was like in his dorm, in his building, probably going to the bathroom. I'm pretty sure, I think it was like he got like a strike or something. I don't know what it's called, but it was like brought to like it like blew up into this whole thing, and he was like stressing. He was like, am I going to get kicked out of school? And I just remember like the mental toll that it had on him. And I think he was like a freshman, and he literally thought he was going to get kicked out of school because he didn't wear a mask. I'm pretty sure they like reported him to like the office. Anyway, it's really just a lot. Like, force everybody needs to wear their mask, but just like, I'm thinking about what those consequences would be. Like, what do they mean by harsher consequences?
So from what I'm looking online, with the most recent update, businesses and organizations that you are currently in will get reprimanded if they do not tell you to wear the mask and do not enforce that. But if you are the person who is refusing to wear the mask and are not listening to the business, you could get a fine and a court date. I'm not quite sure how it all works, but there will be like legal consequences for those actions instead of just a slap on the wrist, be like, you should be wearing that as a pre.
It's like the restrictions are constantly changing. Like, I go to the gym regularly, and at first it was like, okay, you can take your mask off when you're doing strenuous activities, because the treadmills, they're like encased in these barriers. They have like the things in there. So it's like, okay, if you're running, then it's okay to have your mask off as long as you're like in the thing. But then the other day when I was just going about my business running, because the treadmills are like socially distanced, they're 6 feet apart, and then they have like these plastic wrappings. I don't know if you've seen them, but it's like these poles with like plastic wrapping. So you're like encased in your own little bubble. And I was running, and then I was told I need to put a mask on, and that's fine. But it's just like, everything's constantly changing. It gets really frustrating when, day after day, it's like, okay, you can do this, but this way, strenuous activity, but now it's over here. You can drink water. It's just so many different, restrictions, and they're constantly changing, and it's a lot to keep up with. But
it'd be nice if it's a consistent, this is what we're doing.
Yes, very. I like consistency because it's a lot.
Yeah. But I can also understand how the conditions of the pandemic constantly changes, especially with how political it has gotten. Right now, I just wish that everyone could like forget about politics and just focus on this and taking care of this, because everybody wants the same thing, essentially. We all want this to go away. We're all tired of it. It doesn't matter what political party you belong to, but it's taken a very drastic turn, so to speak, because then there's the people who are like, body autonomy, it's my body, I can do what I want, I can choose to not wear a mask.
But it's also taking away the choice of somebody else.
Yeah, exactly. It's also like, well, hey, we kind of need you to wear that if you want to be around other people, if you want to go to businesses, if you want to do the things that you want to do, you kind of have to do this. And it's really hard. It's like I've said before, it's an unprecedented time. Nobody knows what they're doing. And like you said, Caitlin, about how the state's implementing more punishments. I think that works great for like a state level, but I don't know how we can edit that for our school level. Like, what kind of punishments could we bring for school and for students? Because
you don't want it too severe, like Shelyn was saying. Sometimes accidents happen. Sometimes you forget that we are in a pandemic and you just need to use the bathroom, for goodness sake. And is that really the consequence that should be administered to something of that level,
Yeah, and you don't want to like punish somebody with like
expulsion.
Like a discipline report, like academic probation or anything, because that can also hurt somebody. That can make them lose all motivation. They can be like, well, I mean, if I'm already on probation, if I'm already messed up my chances, what am I still doing here? It can really put a damper on people's outlook on the school and their education. Now, I think more punishments could be like imposed on, say, like organizations like Greek Life. I know that like if they were to have like an unauthorized party or a gathering or something, there could be a little bit more punishment for that because they know what they're doing. But it's also like hard because they're Greek Life. That's what they do.
It's a part of, and to have them automatically cut all that off. Like, that's kind of what they do. That's how they interact. Everybody knows that the Greek Life throws party.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, why are you surprised that they're doing this? And it's also kind of like the demonization of people who are, because like even when you do have fun, like we said, when we finally break, it's kind of hard to fully enjoy your freedom. If you do go to a gathering, even if it's just like with like friends and 5 people, you feel guilty. So it's like you can never fully enjoy yourself. Everybody's constantly has like this cloud over their head. Like, no matter how great the party is, no matter how much fun you're having, there's always going to be a cloud like, I shouldn't be here, I shouldn't be here, I shouldn't be here,
Yeah.
You can never fully enjoy it. It's very hard.
It's hard to enforce anything too, because are we just going to have like NC State officers patrolling around, or are we going to depend on people reporting things? And then we have to deal with people feeling like they're doing something wrong by reporting people or not reporting people. It
gets complicated really quickly.
Yeah, and it's also like walking on eggshells around people because we are a public school. We do have to deal with outside people's approval because we depend on state funding and everything, and it's hard because if we do something somebody doesn't like, then we're going to pay the consequences for it as a school. It's really hard.
So as we're talking, there is multiple vaccines being approved in the US, and they will be gradually somehow brought into the population. Because it is such a gradual thing, a lot of these vaccines require like 2 shots for it to work. How do you see the transition back from our COVID-19, always wear a mask, social distancing, to more of a normalcy?
That was actually one of my greatest fears, that things will never go back to normal, that they're never like, it's going to be kind of like there is no normal. Like after basically a whole year of doing this, are you going to be able to stand 3 feet of like apart from a person, not like feel like you should be standing, farther away? Are you going to be comfortable with walking up to people or shaking people's hands or giving your best friend a hug or, touching I didn't do this before, but like touching a door handle? Like, it's going to be very hard to go back to normal. And I don't know. I'm just scared that everybody, might not be as social, that I don't know, because I've heard of what NC State campus is like before, and just the thought that I won't be able to experience that in its entirety is it's very depressing, that we still might be like this, that it still might be deserted, or that'll never go back to, pre-corona. I'm really afraid of that.
Yeah, I think we may get some normalcy back, and I am pretty sure that you'll get to see the beauty that is NC State's social environment. At least I really hope you get to see that. I also think that it's not going to go back to what we used to think was normal. I think we're going to take some aspects of it and some aspects of our COVID normal, is what I'm calling it. I think we're going to make a new normal, a new way for us all to interact and become a functioning society again, because we can always count on college students to be social. That's not something that we're ever going to give up, but we may be a little bit more careful about it. We may not be as extreme as we are now. We may be closer, have a little bit larger gatherings, but we're still going to be like a little more weary about everything. And I think that's a little bit of a good thing, because hopefully this doesn't happen again and we can just be prepared for anything that comes our way now. Yeah, but I think it's not going to go back to our old normal, but we will have a sense of normalcy. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, what I'm trying to say is that we'll feel like we're back to a normal, but it's not going to be the exact same. It's like whenever the metaphor of whenever you break a dish, you can put it back together, but it's not going to be the exact same as before.
So I was actually about to say, we've been speaking for almost 2 hours, so we can definitely end now. Thank you guys for your time, and I really appreciate you doing this.
Yeah, thank you for having us. I really enjoyed this. I've always heard the podcasts and everything, and it was great to be able to be part of one.
Of course, thank you so much.
Glad I
TRIO Student Support Services Program and Student Support Services STEM are federally funded college retention and completion programs. These programs focus on academic, personal, and career support for under-resourced undergraduate students. At TRIO SSS and SSS STEM, our goal is helping our students reach their goals. We are currently accepting new students to our program. Apply today. Go to www.ncsu.edu to learn more about student support services at NC State.